How do you learn who you really are? It's not found in books. It's found on the battlefield. All right, we're live. Clint Callahan, awesome to be able to hang out with you. And I can already tell in our 5 minutes of conversation, we need to record immediately. So one thing I really enjoyed that when we jumped into, we started getting into a concept I've been really struggling with. But we got into the different warrior types that are all within us in our strong side, heart, body, mind, soul. And you're like, man, I'm strong in mind, strong in heart, working on that body and warrior side. And my spirit side is a troublesome side. And I'm like, I'm mind, body, spirit is open, heart is my struggle side. And we're finding value in just the conversations, but then it gets into the belief systems. And I saw you going down the rabbit hole for belief systems are the core of everything that we do. Yes. And I concur, but I want to hear more about you. And then I'm going to take us into a deeper rabbit hole after that. I got a plan.
That sounds great. Well, my name is Clint Callahan. I've been a therapist now for 23 years, been alive for 47, been through all kinds of stuff. I'll just give a quick overview of my story. When I was born, I weighed 1 pound, 15 ounces. So I've been told my whole life that I'm special because I survived. Even though I didn't know I was surviving, I was just doing what I had to do to be here. And I'm really lucky because 47 years ago, they didn't know a lot that they know now. And I'm lucky to just be here and be normal, whatever that is, because I haven't quite found that yet. And I've talked to a lot of people. Part of a lot of my childhood was bullying. I spent elementary school, junior high, high school, being bullied by my group of friends, but then individual. We were really good friends. So it was that really confusing time. And that's what led me into wanting to learn more about why people do what they do, wanting to learn about how people are what they are, and just pushing through and trying to figure out what makes people tick. And then throughout my life, of course, I've had lots of trauma and issues and things just like that. In 2008, my real estate business collapsed. I got into real estate because 2005, my mom committed suicide after she told me she was going to, and I went to her with the doctors, told the doctors who I was, told the doctors all my credentials, and they dismissed me because I didn't have doctor in front of my name. At least that's my story I tell myself, but that's the kind of stuff. And so out of that trauma, I became even more dedicated to helping people get through their pain, get through their stuff. And that's why I started and branched out into life coaching in this last several months, because I want to get my message out to more people that it doesn't take big changes to make changes in your life. If you spend 15 minutes a day figuring out what you're thinking, why you're thinking, how you're thinking, and how to make that transition and that change from the way you view your story, you can make your life better.
I like that. I can see you've said this a few times too, because you had that really well rehearsed. I like it. No, it's good. It's just some tough stuff, and there's a few things I want to get into on this one, especially the people who dismissed you when you're talking to your mother, the way bullies pick a target, and then the fact that we disregard miracles all the time. It was just a part of the things I saw in your story. Like my nephew Sean, that's my little homie. That's my dude. He's the one who's like, Uncle Ricky, like he's the one who's like, whenever I'm around, the battle is about to ensue. Oh, yeah. He's like 6 now, but that's my little dude. And same thing, he was born around the same thing, 1 pound. You could put him in the middle of your hand, but the technology we have today, like he had a fighting chance, and for you to be there before that technology was around and still make it, like by all accounts, you're a miracle, man. Like there's no denying, like you should statistically not be talking to me right now.
No, I shouldn't be. And I know that. I mean, at my lowest weight, I think I got down to 1 pound, 9 ounces. I had pneumonia multiple times. They did multiple surgeries before I was even 6 months old. They tried multiple experimental stuff to try to fatten me up, but my body rejected it, and it killed other kids. I know all this because my mom kept a detailed journal. And one of the things that she wrote in that journal, which really surprised me, was back then they didn't let you hold premature babies because they didn't think that was wise. So for the first 4 months of my life, I was in an incubator, and the only contact I had was doctor hands, surgical stuff, blood draws, those kind of things. And so my mom wrote in her journal, which she's tucked in the back of my baby book, and I only found that a couple of years ago after she died. And I read it, and it said, the thing that was hardest was not only the fact that all these other kids were dying around him, but that when I reached my hand in to try to touch him, he'd flinch away like I was going to hurt him. And the thing about that was so powerful for me is my body remembered that my whole life. So other people trying to touch me without my permission always felt like fire ants under my skin. But one of the things being a therapist is I do therapy by myself all the time. And so I went through a process called EMDR, and it helped me to break through that trauma and reprocess that trauma in a way that now I don't have that anymore. And this happened because about 4 years ago, I was sitting on the couch and my youngest, who is a giant physical huggy monster, my youngest son, always wants to be touched, always wants to be held. And now he's in my life, and it was the hardest thing for me because I didn't want to, but I did anyway. And so he came up behind me one day and grabbed me on the couch and said, "I loved you." And I just lost it because it just triggered all the fear, all the body keeps the score stuff. And so when I went through EMDR as part of my training to become an EMDR certified therapist, I did EMDR myself with a certified trainer, and it broke through that trauma and told me and let me know the most amazing thing was as I was reprocessing it, I used my son hugging me as the entry point. And from that, the last thing that happened before I broke through was the doctors weren't trying to hurt me. They were just trying to keep me alive. And it's amazing that my brain came up with that spontaneously. I wasn't even thinking about that. And now it's been over almost 2 years since I've been trained as an EMDR therapist, and it doesn't bother me anymore. It fixed the trauma. And that's the thing is, it wasn't a big thing. I literally went through this in a 2-hour period with this coach that was teaching me to do this, and it changed my life. It doesn't take these big moments to make massive changes. It just takes being willing and moving through. It doesn't happen that fast for everybody, and I know that it's because I had 23 years of therapeutic training, 23 years of going through my own therapy and my own stuff. But I wasn't able to make that breakthrough that fast. So it's not like, oh, it magically happened. It's just one of those things that as you continue to move through these things, it doesn't take the big stuff. It takes the little things over and over and over and over again to drill it into this thick skull that we have and this story that we tell ourselves. Because the story that we tell ourselves is always, this is my new reality. When most of the time, give it 5 minutes and no, it's not.
Yeah, there's a lot of pieces there. There's a lot to get into. Like one thing, I'm gonna validate you and then ask a couple questions too. I wrote a thing. My first book is Everything is a Choice. It falls into a high level of stoicism, but also gets into a lot of different perspectives on how we handle the things around us by first having a level of awareness. And my next book is The Map Out of Hell, which goes into the mind mapping of how we actually operate through our trauma, through our fear, through our belief systems, through our identity. It goes into like, here's the roadmap to find where you are to get you out of that nightmare. One of the things I write in the first section for my my program is the moment. And this is one of the things you talked about where, like, it took me 2 hours to get to that point where it clicked, but I had 21 years of experience. And what I found is it takes as long as it takes. And it could take 10 seconds. It could take 10 weeks. It could take 10 months. But there's a moment where you go, I get it.
Yeah.
There's a moment that it clicks. And so you may be working for a long time for that moment until you hit the moment, but it's no different from anything where you go like, I'm not doing that anymore. Or like, you know what? I'm going to start my business. Or it's the moment. It's the moment you go right there. It's 1 second. You may be working a year for that 1 second, but there's 1 second when you decide and you go, I'm going that way now.
And really that comes down to, change is a very simple process. That's really hard to do. Change is consistency. If you do it every day, like, one of the biggest things that I needed to do after my mom died is I had to figure out, what does this mean for the rest of my life? Because now this person who was my rock is now gone. So I spun for a while. I spun for about 3-4 years and couldn't find my bearings. And then once I found my bearings, I started to change by doing little things. So I started meditating because I studied Buddhism in college for a long time. So I started meditating again. I started journaling again. My routine now is 5 minutes of the morning, 3 minutes of meditation, 2 minutes of journaling. Lunchtime, 3 minutes of journaling, 3 minutes of meditation, 2 minutes of journaling. I do this 5 minutes, 3 times a day to basically give myself a framework of this is my intentions for the day. Am I meeting those intentions halfway through? Did I meet my intentions by the end of the day? And by doing that, it helps me to maintain and keep balance, to keep track of goals, to understand what I'm trying to do and where I'm trying to go so that I don't just flounder around in the course of a day and not know what I'm trying to get out of it. Because there's 2 ways you can look at a day. You can get either through the day or you can get from the day. I would much rather get from the day instead of just through it. But so many people just try and get through it, hoping that maybe by the time I get to the weekend, I'll have enough energy to do something. Maybe by the time I do this, I'll have time for my kids. Maybe. But the problem with maybe is it's like tomorrow, right? Tomorrow, there's always tomorrow. You're only a day away. And that's the way it is. Maybe is the same way.
Yeah, I see. You go into so many interesting things in one thing. All right, so I got a question for you because I see the way that you structured a lot of things around this word that I've done some surveys and done some writing on myself. You talked about the word change. Why is change in your experience so far? Why is change so hard? What is the thing that makes change so difficult for people, especially older people? Why is change so hard?
Because change is the function of your brain. Your brain is a biological computer that is created through story, which creates pathways. And electricity is what runs your brain. And electricity has one goal: get from A to B as fast as possible. So if you have a pathway of this thing that you've done 1 billion times without even thinking about it, and now you're saying, hey, here's a new pathway that I've done 100,000 times, which way is it still going to want to go? It's going to want to go the billion trod path because it knows what the result is. It knows that in that moment in your brain, maybe it takes a nanosecond more to do the 1,000 path, the path you've only trod a little bit. But for your brain, that's a lifetime. That's an eternity. That 1 nanosecond extra that it takes to get where it wants to go. And that's why change is so hard. That's why big change, when you come out of like those 3-day seminars where you feel so supercharged and so ready to go, but then you slip back into the old patterns because you don't have a practical, everyday focused solution to keep you walking down that path. It's like I liken it to Google Maps, right? I can turn on Google Maps and it'll show me where I am generally. But if I don't put in the destination, I could be driving around for hours before I get there. But it's much easier when you have the blue line that says turn here, go here, do this, do that. Just like what you were talking about in your book. The map. You need the map. But the map needs to be, this is what you do. This is what you do day 1 after you get this beginning transformative experience. This is day 2. This is day 3. This is day 4. And if you can give them a 7-day protocol that they can repeat and repeat and repeat, it then allows their brain to begin the process of change. And it's not this overwhelming thing because, again, our brain loves to say, oh, you want to do this? Well, that means this is your new reality. Oh, you're fearful right now? That means you're going to be afraid all the time. Oh, you don't like this? Well, that means you're not going to like it forever. Because our brain deals in absolutes because we are still cavemen. We are only 5,000 years out of being wandering herdsmen and tribes. We are still living out of survival mode, humanity's survival mode, because that's what the last 185,000 years of our evolution is we need to survive. And because of us all being stuck in survival mode in some form or fashion, because what they found is the genetic memory component, the piece that animals have, like where a deer can get up and walk after being born in like 20 minutes and all those kind of things, we have that too. It's just because we are very conscious, it is overwritten a lot by what we think, but all that stuff is still in there, and it pushes us to do things and think things in a way that makes us make irrational choices based on fear. Because in my experience, fear is where all feelings start, even joy and happiness, which people hate it when I say that because they're like, how can that be? And I'm like, because if you think about it, the last time you were truly happy Did the thought cross your mind, this is going to end soon? Am I going to ever feel this way again? How can I feel this way more often? That's fear creeping in and telling you a story.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Warrior, thank you so much for being a part of the information that we have. And you're part of our story as we are a part of yours. It's very much an honor to be able to connect with each other. If you want to know more or you want to get started with working with me or working with our warriors so that you can begin your path to authenticity, strength, leadership, and accountability, this is the way. Together, we are way stronger. Now you get to choose. Do you go forward or keep doing what you've always done? If you stay where you're at, hey, click on some of the stuff and follow what it is. We got motivational stuff. We've got podcasts. We've got more things. Just subscribe and do the stuff and we'll keep you updated. But if you want to start going in, start jumping into what our programs offer and start your journey and being the hero in your own story. Man, every single time you talk, there's like 5 more questions. I'm never gonna keep up with these. Okay. So I've got the story for change here. There's a story, there's electrical pathways, there's a most traveled pathway to rewrite the story. It can take a while to be able to figure out how to make a new neurological pathway to tell a different story for your brain. That's pretty tricky for people to gather like the change thing. And then we got another aspect of thing where you have like people are trying to get through the day and not getting from the day, which goes into the quotes that people usually will see memes for, which is life happening to you or for you, or are you trying to survive or thrive? And so it gets tricky when I want to be motivated in order to change my electrical pathways. I don't know where that's at or how to do that. So I'm like, I want to make a new electrical pathway, but I'm not an electrician, Clint. And so how do I do it? So like, how do you correlate motivation then to this style of change?
It comes down to motivation. So I think of it like mountain climbing, because when you climb a mountain, if you're at the bottom of the mountain and you're looking at the peak, you're already exhausted because you can barely see it through the clouds and all these different things, right? It's so far away. I will never get there. So I always tell my clients, the only way that you can get to the mountaintop is you have to stop, look at your feet, and follow the path in front of you. And you need to create base camps, because each day is that step. That's why creating that 7-day repeating process is what begins the process of changing the pathway. Because you're now, like I said, what I do, I get up and I meditate in the morning to try to get clarity. I then do journaling about what I want, like a gratitude journal in the morning of what I want to get from the day. How do I want to get from today? And then I go and look at that again, because each time I do that, I am stopping, I'm looking at where I am, and I'm seeing, is the story I'm telling myself commensurate with where I'm trying to get? Because if I'm at the bottom of a mountain and I look at it and I'm saying I can't even make that first step, then I'm never going to go anywhere. And a single journey, right? It begins with that first step. And the first step is change the way you view change. And the way to do that is you have to set goals properly. But most people set goals backwards. They set goals and say, if I do this, I will have this and I will become this. But what they need to do is say, who do I want to be? What do I need to do to become that so I can have this? Because by putting the be first, you're now changing you to get where you to then do the right things to then have the stuff you want. And it sounds, well, that makes perfect sense. It's so easy. And it's like, that's one of the hardest things to do, because the first thing you have to do is figure out who you are and what you want. But the good thing is it doesn't take years and years and years of psychoanalysts to do that. You don't have to always go back and revisit your trauma and re-traumatize yourself. All it takes is you sitting where you are today, right now, and ask yourself the question, what do I want for my life? What kind of man do I want to be? What kind of a husband do I want to be? What kind of father do I want to be? Because if I know what the core of those being pieces are, that will then begin, well, this is what I need to do. Like recently I had an epiphany from reading an article about what I need to do with my boys. because I have a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old. And I read an article that says 93% of the time with my kids is between birth and 18. After 18, I will then get 7% of them for the rest of my life. And when I saw that, I was like, no way. There's no way that's possible. That's a ridiculous number. How could that possibly be? And so I thought about my own life. Yeah, I saw my parents every day up until I was 18. And then I went to college. And then I saw them maybe once a month. And then I saw them maybe holidays. And then I moved to California for 20 years. And I saw them maybe every 2 years. And then, right? And that is the stuff that happens, is it literally begins with slow down, take that step, and begin that process of change by making those little adjustments of, in the morning, I'm going to stop and breathe and set intentions for my day. Because if you can begin with just that one step, you have begun the rewiring process, because now you're aware of the story that you're telling yourself. So that way you can say, no, we're not going down that path, because I know where that path leads. That path leads to bridge out. And I don't like going off that cliff anymore. I'm done.
A lot of pieces still. There's like, I got 4 more things from this one. All right. I'm going to have to try and get to where we can unpack some of these things. Okay. So, all right. So we got the electrical thing through change. I've got a mountain climbing thing. I also see you have a structure that you've created for yourself, which, you know, people I've often seen have to figure out their own structure, which you got gratitude journal, meditation. Also, you catch the awareness of the stories / beliefs that you have that you're running your life on. But then you said you have to change how you see change. Yeah. But changing how I see change, like you were trying to rewire it from like, you know, a reverse engineer idea. And by doing that, there's a couple of things I've run into for roadblocks, and just a couple of these. I have different definitions for fear. Change, I've got a different definition for. And then the strategy that you just said for like, you know, who do I want to be? What do I want? Like, who are you? You know, even getting to like, well, who is my role model, or who's my, you know, who am I trying to model this off of? And a lot of people don't have a positive version of that. So it's like, who, a make-believe character? I don't know who we're talking about. You know, people go, Jesus. And like, you've never seen what he does. You don't know. You don't know. And so I've got opinions kind of on all of these. Is it okay if I share a couple pieces with you that like I found in my journey?
Please do.
Okay. With change, the thing that's tough with change is that it's really difficult to understand a long-winded version of it. The reason that change is so hard is because it's associated to loss. Yeah. What you used to do is not the same as it is now. It changed. And even if change is good, it's still loss. And so like if you got a new job in, I don't know, pick a state, Florida or Arkansas or, you know, Iowa, who cares? Pick one. If you got more clients, better income, shorter commute, everything is there. Or even if it's down the road, let's just take a right instead of a left. Let's just do that. Like to go to your office, you used to go left. It was a 20-minute drive. You had your favorite coffee shop on the way there. You'd say hi to certain people on the way in. And that was your routine for 20 years. But now you upgraded everything, and now you turn right. You don't go near that coffee shop. You don't see those old people. And even though it's an upgrade, it's a better office and more money and better opportunities and nicer people. What you used to do for 20 years isn't there anymore. People struggle with just the loss of it. Well, this goes into grieving systems. This goes into, you have to go through denial, bargaining, anger, depression to get to acceptance. You still got to go through grief just with change, even if it's winning. Why do you think people struggle with like leaving a bad relationship that they were in for a long time? And we understand the memes, like don't hold on to a mistake just because you took a long time to make it. We get the answer, but that doesn't mean you understand how to mourn or go through a grieving cycle. And we don't associate change with grief. Now, here's a funny thing that you'll laugh at. I did a survey with people asking, like hundreds of people, do you believe people change? And it was a very mixed response. It was like, some people were like, nope, some people never change. And some people were like, oh, yeah, we all change. Like it was a very mixed answer with change. And, you know, especially people who have been burned, you know, people have been cheated on. Like, what about once a cheater, always a cheater? They're like, absolutely, people don't change. So then I went into like, do you believe that people evolve? And it seems like as soon as I said the word evolve, it was like 98% were like, yes, people can evolve. we evolve, we change, we evolve, we get better, because the word evolve for some reason feels like progress. But change is associated to loss.
Yes.
And it's very interesting because it's the same damn thing.
Yeah. But it also comes back to but it also comes back to where it's exactly what you're talking about, right? It's language. My job ultimately is to make sure that I'm understood, because this is the most soft science that you can possibly get into, right? I'm talking to you about your feelings, trying to understand your story so that I can help you shift your story to evolve into the best version of yourself, or to change into the best version of yourself, whichever way that you want to say it. But that's really what it is that's why a lot of what therapy is me saying, okay, so what I hear you saying is this, 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 and this. Is that correct? Or did you mean something else? Because if you don't have good A to B communication, because let's face it, language is not precise at all. And the problem with that is one of my favorite examples to give my clients is that, look, as you and I are talking, my brain is going like 1,000 miles an hour, yet I'm speaking at like 100 miles an hour. So even while I'm talking, your brain is already 15 miles down the road while I haven't even finished my sentence yet, because you've already got an idea of how you want to respond. Because we as human beings have been trained to listen, to hear, to listen, but not to actually understand.
True.
So my job is to really get to the understanding piece of this is what you're going through. I hear what you're saying. I see you. But it's those kind of things, like you're exactly right. The language piece is so big when you say evolve and change, right? You think those are the same things, but really, if you look at the definition of those two, they're so different. Because evolution is considered to be one of those things that is a positive thing. But change, like you've said, it is a negative thing, because for most people, evolution is almost like, I look at it this way. Evolution is a choice, and change is like something that's forced upon you. Because I had to change when my mom died, and that was forced upon me. And then did you become change
better
appropriately.
Or worse over time? Did you become better or worse over time?
I became worse. Became worse for about 3.5 to 4 years.
Until you embraced what it is. And then what did you do?
So I became worse for about 3 or 4 years, where I basically buried myself in work. I disconnected from everybody. I burned out on doing therapy. I didn't want to do any of those things. And then I began to see the wreckage that it left behind me, because I finally snapped out of it. I finally was able to process and come to terms with, my mom told me how she was going to die, and then she did it. And I felt supreme guilt that I, being a trained mental health professional, that I was working in a locked psychiatric hospital when she told me I knew everything that I was supposed to do and could do, and I did everything I could, but it wasn't enough, so shame on me. It was the guilt piece of that.
But even the shame, even the bargaining, even the denial, all the things, you were just grieving. And even as an expert, to go like, I don't know how to operate through mourning and grieving effectively, which is like where my main strength is at.
Yeah.
Almost all of the stuff, as soon as we go in and like, let's attack you from like the grieving system. Where are you hurting right now? And it bounces back and forth where you're like, if only I could have done this. I'm an expert. I should have been able to do this. And if only this, I'm like, you're bargaining right now, man.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, but no, it's not me, and it's fine. I'm just going to bury myself in work, and it's fine. And I got this. You're in denial right now, man.
Yep.
And like, well, I just feel like this is like the system is shitty, and the doctors didn't listen to me because I didn't say doctor first. And so
that was the
I'm
anger.
blaming them, and then anger.
That was the
and
anger.
then you're like, and like, I feel like a piece of shit, and I'm not good enough, and I suck, and I just shame stacking myself. Well, you're in depression. You're going through your sadness phase, and you stay bouncing in there until you can work through acceptance on each one. And this is one of the ones.
You get to that acceptance piece where you stop and take that breath and look back and go, I did everything I could. She made the choice.
Correct.
I did everything I knew how to do. I used every resource I knew, but she made the choice. And here's the thing, I've accepted even the why she did it. Because what happened was my mom got a disorder called dermatomyositis, which basically was an autoimmune disorder that was liquefying all of her joints from the inside. So she was in chronic pain 24/7, 365, and she fought it for 3 years. And I know that what it is she couldn't escape pain. ever. And so she had to make a choice, and she made that choice. And I am I still do not advocate suicide in any fashion, but I also understand why she was in so much pain that she had to make a choice to not be in pain anymore, because oftentimes even the cure was worse than the disease. And it was those kind of things that, being through that and seeing through that, getting to that acceptance part, it took a long time. And I'm with you. I'm like, when you were talking, I'm like, get out of my head. Get out of my head.
It's tough. And like, it's sad because I've also, even in the last couple of years, I've had friends commit suicide and the same thing. I'm like, bro, you could have called. I talked to you 2 months before that and you said everything is going great. You're on a big uphill. And then within 2 months of that conversation, I'm going to your funeral. What the heck, man? Like, I had all the things. You have to go through the systems until you can get to, like, I understand that your choices are yours and I cannot control everyone's choices. And that's a tough part to get to a race to acceptance on.
And that's the hard thing about suicide, right? Because suicide at its core is the person that commits suicide transfers their pain to all the people that love them unintentionally. Because they're just trying to escape their pain, but what they don't realize is it goes and finds other hosts, and it finds us.
Even not suicide. Tell me which people don't do that even alive.
Yeah, that's true.
Like everybody,
abuse,
like hurt people.
Domestic violence, verbal abuse, physical abuse, bullying, all that stuff is you transferring your pain to others because you can't handle it.
You name it. Like, people are all transferring their pain. And this is why I'm even this next book, you're going to dig what I'm doing right now, because I'm correlating all these things that are together, where your coping mechanisms, which are not trauma responses, I'll argue.
Nope.
They're not trauma, they're coping mechanisms of how I survive things, which are all based on a positive version of it that we don't normally use. There is a positive way to do it, but we'll go into the way we're trying to cope, which is associated with our grieving cycle. If you look at fight, flight, freeze, fawn, well, I just changed the names of it to a warrior style. So fight is attack, flight is retreat, hide, suppress, depression, it goes into freeze, and then you got bargaining is negotiator. This is the people pleaser, or the how do I sacrifice myself to make it so that you're okay. And so it's the same systems that are there, but correlated in a different system that's more advanced than I've read so far, because I've read like hundreds of articles on this, and they're really basic. And I'm like, no, we're missing too many pieces here, because there's a positive version of this, but a lot of us go into a survival version to mitigate, or even try to protect ourselves, which hurt people. So we do more harm with our systems than good.
Yes,
and so
we do.
I'm with you on the suicide does transfer pain, but I think that we're transferring pain always.
Yeah.
It's just being able to handle.
It's just suicide is just such a big transfer because of the giant what if question that can never, ever be answered, because the only person that can answer it is not here anymore. And it's that piece, right? So we then have to go, because I'm with you on the grief piece. And I've often told many of my clients that grief is not just this thing that happens when someone dies. Grief is a river that we are walking beside for our entire life. And sometimes it's deep and sometimes it's shallow. But in doing that and in recognizing that, we see the grief process for what it is, which is it is part of life. It is not separate from life. And that's the thing that I think a lot of human beings, we as people, have trouble with, is that we are not separate from anything. All this stuff is connected. And if you just take a step back and recognize that everything you do, everything other people do, everything that we do to the planet, to ourselves, to each other, is all connected and just continues to create the same cycle again and again and again. We just happen to be more technologically advanced this time.
It's kind of like having enough rope to hang yourself.
Exactly, 100%. That's a much simpler way of saying it.
Yeah, it's very funny. We got more technology. It doesn't make us we're still cavemen.
Yes, we are.
Cavemen with lasers now.
And here's the thing. They use our caveman brain against us in the technology.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're
Facebook,
not wrong
Instagram,
with algorithms.
You watch that show on Netflix, right? What is it?
Social Dilemma.
Yeah, the Social Dilemma. Yeah, where you're like, oh, wow. They use all of everything that we are, that makes us who we are, against us. Correct. To keep us stuck, to keep us there, where we lose hours of ourselves into what? Literally nothingness.
It's distractions. And its job is to create
coping,
distractions.
Right? It's coping.
Well, if you're stuck in denial and you don't want to feel hurt, I'm going to go towards something that gives me pleasure.
Exactly.
And, when you go towards a pleasure system, those pleasure systems, because I don't want to deal with the reality of my life because I don't like it, you don't realize that the denial system you built your entire protection around is a fake persona that you don't want to deal with your reality on. And so I'm going to go towards the same way the devil works is give me the thing I want the most. And I'm going to go, please give me more. I want to see more of what's going on in the life. And I want to compare to other people. And some people I'm like doing better than them. And some people are like, this bitch got all her kids to wear matching flannel and a pumpkin patch. Who she thinks she is. Like there's all these weird comparisons and things that we're looking at. And the guys are like, oh, this guy's 25 and in a jet plane that he owns himself, which is photoshopped. And then you're like, now I'm not good enough. And I'm not a millionaire by 30. And I'm a piece of shit. And I'm not, 6 foot with 6 figures, which means I'll never get a mate. And all these weird things that are on this device that people will look up and get more of. And I actually have a lot of conversations. I just had a really great one with a psychologist a couple of days ago. His name is Anjenko Vincent Deboni. He's in Sweden. And we had a great conversation because he's in very different algorithms than me. In fact, I hate social media very much. Like I have somebody who runs my social media. You've talked to her. Like she runs on my social media because I can only be sucked into this for so long before like it kind of disgusts me. I can only have so many ads pop up or so many things they try to influence. Like this is how you should think. And I'm highly resistant to this. I'm like, this is manipulation. I'm not falling for this. I know what that is. But I don't fall on any of these polarizations that they're trying to maneuver people step by step towards. Call it left, call it right, call it, one belief system or another. And I'm like, well, we're all just trying to take care of a family here. What are you doing?
Yeah, ultimately, that's what we
are
all
doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. It's like, am I though? Because then we get into truth and all kinds of stuff, and we don't even know what that means. So,
I mean, that's the thing right now. Truth is even more scary than ever because, thanks to all the new systems and different things like AI and deepfake and all these different things, that truth has become this very esoteric thing where the only place where you can really get truth is face to face with people now.
Well, even that's not truth.
What is truth? That can not be true. Yeah.
Like even to have the question of what is truth is esoteric as how it's kept me up for half the week. I've been writing on it all week because like I've got my friends that like to go into like the breathing of the galaxy deep, like they have to go into like the depth of existence on a molecular level. And so like I love those conversations and they're great. But if I said, what is truth? By the end of it, the entire conversation has been so subjective that not 1 ounce of facts have to be in there for you to have a belief system that you'll live and die for. So what is truth except for something that we agree?
Yeah. Truth is a story that we tell ourselves that other people agree to.
Yeah. As long as they agree, then it's true. But without new information, well, it just stays limited, which is our belief systems are all limiting beliefs. How much potential do you have? Well, the truth is as much as you believe. Well, how much do you believe you have? I believe I'm limited. Well, then you're right.
Yeah, exactly right. Whether you can or whether you can't. Yep.
And exactly. Either way, you are correct. 100%. Yeah. All right, I got another one for you. I'm going to shift back into some old stuff because I think that we're going down the
rabbit hole.
Which I love. Don't get me wrong. I like it. I'll do it, but I know that people are going to start getting triggered already. So let me go in. I don't care. I don't care if they get triggered. Get triggered. Good. You'll find something about yourself. All right, let's go into all feelings start from fear. I'm gonna do a small challenge on this one so we can do a little sparring on this one. It just feels nice because let's get our mental brain because you got a big beautiful brain, so let's practice. All right. I don't believe that all feelings start from fear. I believe fear is separate. I call it one of the enemies within. So my 4 enemies within that come in through our feeling side, which I agree. It does come in through feelings. Fear comes in through your imagination system, which in most cases, fear is not real. It's just a possibility. Like, I could not get the job, or maybe they'll say no, or what if I get, somebody hurts me, or what if I lose all my money, or what if I do that, what if. A lot of times we're looking around and the thing that you're afraid of isn't happening. Like fear and danger are not the same. That is not the same thing. If somebody is in danger, that's not the same as fear, because fear is like, well, what if somebody were to put me in danger? Well, then you would have to act accordingly because you would know what the danger was. Yep. Are you in danger? Well, no. We'll be like, well, then why are we worrying about something that's not happening? In which case, I think that fear is beatable. because it's oftentimes not real. And I've had a lot of people who have overcome their anxiety and taken themselves off of medication because they're like, we ripped out the core fear that wasn't real. It was stuck in their grief cycle, that they were terrified of something repeating itself again, until they were able to assess, if that were to happen, I'm prepared in at least 6 different ways to handle it. Why am I in fear versus curiosity? And so once I get people like through all of the steps, and like, if you want to go through them, I'm happy to. But if we go through all of these are the steps that you have to do. And then remember your training, because I'm with you when it comes to the small steps of repeat. I'm with you, but repeat with your fighting style in a way that works.
Exactly.
I don't think that fear is the start of all feelings for me. I don't feel that way because a lot of the feelings I have, I don't associate with fear. In fact, when I go through my systems, when we said body side, mind side, spirit side, heart side, most of the fear that I have would be only on heart side. And that's because that's my weakest area as far as the way that I'm training right now. I'm getting stronger and stronger. And I'm training every day, especially like inner child work. I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, it's all heart side. I didn't know that. I had that closed off. So my warrior side there's no kids here. This is warrior time. And my mind side, this is the library. Shh, no kids. And then the spirit side, I'm, giving surrender and faith to God or whatever belief system you have. There's no children in this area. They're in the kids' room. They're in the heart side. Well, in order to go through fear on that side, that can be addressed by my other sides very easily.
Well, and I get what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying, and I agree with most of it. But the thing that I'm looking at is I'm not talking about fear from the psychological side. I'm talking about fear from the biological side, from the state that our body is currently in. Because that's why I say it all starts from fear, because most of the time our body is still in some version of fight, flight, freeze, or fold because of the long-term biology of the survival of the human species. That's where I start fear from, is from the biological, not from the feeling side. Because the biological piece it's that undercurrent that goes throughout your life that you rarely recognize, that until you do, it's like, oh, I get it now. Oh, I see that. I recognize how, I'm happy right now, but I did slip into fear a little bit. Or, oh, I'm even more in fear now than I want to be. Or, oh, I just got triggered in this thing because of this reason, or because of the way this thing happened, and those kind of things, where it's your body is currently always primed to be ready to survive. That's all. That's the piece that I'm talking about.
I see what you're saying.
That's where it's coming from.
Okay, I agree with this part, because it goes into the coping mechanisms that we use to be able to handle situations when we don't have control. In which case, this is where I go into, there's only 2 kinds of people. You're either trained or untrained. Do you understand the system you're using on purpose, or is this a reactionary system? Are you responding or are you reacting? In which case, there's nothing wrong with having any of the systems you have. It's just, are you using them effectively, or are you using it on impulse? Exactly. And if you don't know the difference, then you're going to be using a fear-based system to survive instead of a tactical system to thrive. I agree. I feel like 100%. We're on the same page.
Yes, that is exactly what I'm talking about. And it really comes back to, again, that's why constant training every day, by having your routine, right? Because I've worked with military, and I've done all that stuff for the last 4 years that I've been in Colorado. So I've done a lot of work with military trauma and those kind of things. And the big thing that I took away from that is the reason why the military structures their intake into the military the way they do is because they're remolding you into following their system to be the most effective tactical team that you can be. But it's those kind of things that even in that, we as human beings resist it a little bit, or we resist it a lot, depending on our personality. And based on that, it's again, just like you said before, figuring out what works for you is the only way that this works. When people come in to see me for therapy, when people come to talk to me about life coaching, 98% of the time, I have no idea where we are going to be starting from, what we're going to be talking about, or where we're going to go. I have a general roadmap in my head of where I want us to go. But ultimately, my job is to let you guide me and be there to help keep you on the path as much as I can and be the guardrails for you. Because that's what you need in those moments, because you're ready to go off that cliff and you're not even knowing that you're doing it, because it becomes these automatic systems in ourselves that we don't even notice. And until we know them, we can't break them. And that's why having these because basically the thing that I've created is really all about teaching psychological tools to increase mindfulness and increase the way that you think about your life in psychological terms, because I've done that my whole life. That's the way I'm wired. Why that is, I don't know. But I've always been one of those things that I'm wired that way, where I always ask myself, why am I doing this? Why am I feeling sick to my stomach right now? Why am I doing these things? That's the heart and the head piece where they keep talking to each other, because I have an engineer father and a social worker mother. So my brain works that way, where think about the feelings, but figure out the solution to get out of the problem. That stuff. So
what you're doing is you are tapping into warrior side, because why is it challenging? I call it the scariest letter in the alphabet.
Yep.
This is warrior talk, and it's a different type of warrior style you are. And you said I'm more head side because of this and more heart side because of this, but I will challenge why. Most people do not like that. I have seen 3-year-olds win debates with just that one word. Like, why?
Why?
Well, why?
Because I say
why
so.
do they do it? Why?
Because I say so.
Yeah, and that's
why?
That's what people say when they don't know the answer. And if any of you out here think you're super fucking smart because you told your kid because I said so, you lost the debate. You lost.
Oh, man, when I've caught myself saying that sometimes to my kids, and I'm like, nope, sorry, that was the wrong answer.
They beat
Let
you.
me back up.
You lost.
This is the reason why.
You
because
lost today.
If you do this, I am afraid this will happen to you. Instead of me just saying because I said so. So I even have to back up and not do that to my kids, because when they ask me why, that's my first response. But I'm like, no, that's not a real response. It's fake.
Or even have your ego not be your amigo and just
exactly.
go, you know what? I actually don't know why they do that. That's a good question. Let's look it up.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can find some answers. Like at some point, you don't have
to more information now than ever. My kids know more about the world at their age than I ever did at their age.
Well, again, you just got into the algorithms that they changed the information, so now your kids are getting the wrong info as the truth. Listen, don't get me started. There's a lot of things in that way. Let's go back to the indoctrination stuff. And this goes back to not just military. Actually, this morning with my men, I've got a lot of military guys in my morning group. And those guys were talking about the systems that they were taught in military that broke them down from civilian, turned them into soldier, and then being just thrust back into civilian without any deregulation from that indoctrination of. One of the guys said, it was really difficult for me as a father right now when my kid asks why, but in the military, you do not ask questions, you just do as you're told. And he's like, because I said so, I'm a commanding officer, was like, that's what I'm saying. But there's actually nothing wrong with my kid wanting to know more. It's the fact that I am not prepared to be challenged as an authority. In fact, he's revealing the parts of me that weren't prepared for fatherhood, because I'm not raising a soldier. I'm raising a human man.
Yep.
And he's like, damn, I'm in my own way. And so even that word why was triggering a belief system that you do not ask questions. You only do as you're told.
Yeah.
The same system runs from people who grew up in traumatic experiences from abusive homes. It's the same rules. Even the very logical systems of what emotions you're allowed to have based on what your parents can process. So I'll give you an example for even our household. If my sister and I were being too loud, shut the fuck up. You guys are being too fucking loud. Yeah. Like, oh, happiness is bad. We got in trouble for being happy.
Yeah, we're being joyful. We're just being kids. We're just enjoying ourselves in the moment. We lost ourselves.
Stop it. You're being too loud.
Yep.
Yeah, that got crushed. All right. Well, what if I start crying and I'm really sad about it? Well, they don't understand why I'm crying.
Boys,
so you've heard this one.
Stop crying. What are you doing?
Oh, no.
Scoop up some dirt on it. You'll be fine.
No, I got way nicer parents than that. I don't know why you're crying, so shut the fuck up or I'll give you a reason to cry.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
What is that?
Yeah.
I don't understand why you're crying.
Yeah.
So
I can't handle that you're crying.
So I'll do something. I'll do something to you that at least I can understand why you're crying, because I don't want to ask you why you're crying.
Yeah. Because
so
this internal stuff, no, I don't want to hear about your internal stuff. No, I don't want that.
If I hit you, though, at least I understand why you're crying, so I'll hit you. Yeah. Yeah, this is way to go, parents. Way to go. Yep. If you've ever said this one again, you lost. So those are the ones where even my uncle said, like, our environment, we grew up in Detroit. I did not grow up in a nice place. And so he says, my uncle even explained it like we grew up as universal soldiers or as Spartans.
Yeah.
And might did make right. And my family, my dad's side still gets in fist fights, even up to this month. Like they've been fighting each other. And I, explain this to my girl, Andrea, and she's like, that doesn't even make sense to me. I'm like, you don't understand where we grew up. Like this was Spartan law. Might made right. You had to fight to earn your piece of chicken. Like you don't understand this world that we have. I've got 5 girls in this house. They think I talk about when I lived in Neverland and had to fight Captain James Hook. They don't understand. And I'm like, this was a real place.
And at the same time, though, that is exactly what you want for your girls. You don't want them to have to ever understand that kind of pain, except for from kind of an esoteric standpoint, because you've worked your whole life to break out, break through, and break away from that.
Well, nobody does it right. I'll tell you right now, Clint, nobody's doing it right.
No,
because the fact that they don't know that danger exists in this world makes them naively walk toward things that like have spikes. And I'm like, oh my God.
Right. It's one of those things, right, where the way that I look at about my being a father and being a parent is my job is to raise my world to raise my kids for a world that no longer exists anymore, because I'm raising them according to how my parents raised me. And yet I'm trying to take the good that I got from them and let go of the bad that I got from them. But at the same time, when you try and do that, the bad still leaks in because it's there. And so you do your best. I mean, and that's the thing. It always comes back to the main thing, right? We're all making it up as we go along.
Yes.
That's what it is we're all doing our best. We're all trying. We're all failing. We're all moving. That's why it's ever changing. And that's why the river next to us that we're walking next to that has grief and life and hope and joy and everything is always moving, always rushing, always carving the Grand Canyon of our life next to us. That, I've worked in hospice, and I can tell you this. The 19 people that I worked with when they were near or at death's door, none of them ever said to me, boy, I sure wish I would have worked more. Boy, I sure wish I wouldn't have traveled as much. Boy, I sure wish I wouldn't have spent as much time with my kids. Everything was, I wish I would have done more with my family. I wish I would have been more connected. I wish I would have told them how I felt when I could. I wish. And it's those kind of things that as we go through life, all we can do is remind ourselves and remember of these core things that we want for ourselves and for the people around us, and do our best to be there and say to them, I love you, I miss you, I'm sorry, I fucked up, I made a mistake, I didn't mean it, I'll do my best to try to change. But all those words are great, but they suck if there's no action behind them.
They can't do it. That's the warrior side. I'm with you. You have to have the action, and there has to be enough confidence and training and courage to be able to have vulnerability. And people do not understand. They think vulnerability is weakness. I'm like, when you understand, especially spirit side or heart side, what vulnerability is, it's twice as strong.
It is.
You're maybe even 10 times stronger, which it's illogical.
Yeah,
but it's correct. Let's give a couple tools on this one, because I'm with you on this one. I'm with you on the river. I'm with you on the things. A couple tools. One of the things you said is we're all doing the best that we can. This is also one of the pieces for acceptance when it comes to grieving through the way your parents were. It doesn't mean that they get a Parent of the Year award, but understand that they are trying to do better than their parents did, and odds are they may have.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean good. Just so you know, that doesn't mean good job. That just means I know you're trying to do better.
Yeah, it means I know you're trying to do better. And really, that's why one of the main tools that I tell parents when I work with parents that have children, when I've worked with parents with children that are having struggles and having difficulties, I'm like, this is what you need to do. You need to sit down as a family and you need to create the house rules together as a family. Everybody gets an input. Everybody signs it. Everybody creates these rules. And then everybody polices each other. And then there's consequences that everybody agrees on that everybody can do. Because by doing that, you're now giving everybody authority to make the family what they want the family to be. but you're doing the goals in a way that is structuring it towards, this is how we want our family to be. We want to be respectful. We want to be connected. We want to be together. We want to do these things. And so that's a very good tool to do, because it allows everybody to have buy-in and authority within the family. And for a lot of families, that's a new concept, because they're used to, well, I'm the parent, you're the child, you do what I say. But giving your child the ability to police you and say, hey, you said we were going to do this thing and you're not, so you're in violation of this rule that we always do what we say we're going to do. So you need to go, take your 5-minute timeout or whatever. And then your kid feels like, I did a good job and I was able to do that. But also it gives you time to stop and think and go, why didn't I meet that rule? Because I know that rule. I helped create that rule. Why was I feeling disconnected at that time? Because family is all about creating deeper connection. Because family is the only place, is one of the few places that if it's a safe environment, that you should be able to have all the training that you need to succeed in life. And sometimes, even in an unsafe family, you get all the training that you need in life, whether you know it or not.
That's an interesting take. I have a resistance to it, and I'm sorting it out right now.
Okay.
Just because, I've got 3 teenage girls, man. I got the youngest one's a perfectionist, and so she's tough as nails on herself and everybody.
Yep.
And so to give authority to the one who would dictate how everyone is wrong, I'm like, I don't know if this is the right setup, because they'd be abusive with their power. She's 13 and she's going to tell everybody how to get it right. And if I say, well, she's an authority also. Now, I do give up space. Like, I do want to hear your input and please share your thoughts.
Sure.
And there's not a consequence for sharing an idea. But at the end of the day, I do have to be the head lion in the house.
Yep.
And so, I'm a final decision, and Andrea is also a very high-ranking decision. Our girls do have a say, and oftentimes we do not decline our girls often for something valuable. But we also still have to have structure where, you are the last say on the totem pole, and that's okay.
Well, and that's okay to create flexibility within that, because one of the ways that I work with my kids is I always give them the ability to appeal. That's the way I look at it.
But I don't give them a gavel.
No.
Because
you don't give them the gavel, but you give them
5-minute time out, Clint. Take your time out there, Dad.
But it is one of those things that it gives them the ability, even if it's the 5-minute time out thing. That's why I did like a 5-minute time out piece, because that's not a big deal.
Right.
But it is one of those things that I'm not saying give them okay, you have full checkbook writing authority or anything like that. No.
Don't give them the checkbook? What?
Yeah, no. I'm saying give them the ability to have some say in, I'm noticing you're not meeting your own standards or the family standards that we set. And I want you to stop and think about that. That's all that's about. It's not about giving them the authority to say, this is all the stuff you're doing bad, but it's teaching them how authority works and what authority means and how you can use it for both good and ill, right?
I like the intent, but man, again, I come from a world of darkness, and this is not how authority works. In our household it may, and in our family it may. And can this be a place of safety to come and have a real conversation? Of course. Yep. But I can't think of when you go, all right, now I'm going out to hunt, that this world operates under that same system. And so if I teach my girls, here is how the world works, and then they go out and they just get punched in the face by world.
Well, but if you notice, I never said these are rules for the world.
Yeah,
I said these are rules for the household, just so that these things will then spark these conversations so that you can have the greater conversations about authority, rule, control, how the world works, the way it is, that kind of stuff. Because home is where you learn common sense. Because that's the thing. Everyone's like, oh, well, common sense. Common sense is not common. Home is where you learn common sense. Home is where you understand what common sense is.
It is your common sense.
Exactly.
There's no such thing as common sense.
Exactly.
There isn't, because that's one thing the military guys were talking about. This should be common sense. And it's common sense if you were in the military, and most people weren't.
Exactly.
So most people don't have your common sense, and your experiences growing up are different than my experiences.
Yeah.
Your strengths are different from my strengths. Your weaknesses are different from my weaknesses. We have different common sense. What I think is
the problem
common
that
is
people
not
get
common.
into, though, is when they get into the common sense piece, then they start to think, well, why don't you understand this? You should know this. This is
There's
common
judgment,
sense. And then that's when they get stuck in that fight pattern with their significant other, with their boyfriend, with their girlfriend, with their best friend, whatever it is, because common sense.
If I can time you out for a second, let's just look at it for a second. This is where I go, all right, Clint, this is common sense here. Just me doing that by itself is me, first off, establishing a rule I just made up. Second off, baselining before you even get a chance to know you're in the game. Just set up that if you don't agree, you lose. And then third off, make it so that if you aren't agreeing with me, you're an idiot and you're stupid. This means I'm judging you immediately. So if common sense is me creating a rule, telling you you're already wrong if you think otherwise, and you're dumb.
Yep.
Your turn.
Exactly.
I just made up the fucking rule. I just made it up right now. I made it up. As the banker in Monopoly, I can take money out whenever I want to. It's common sense. And if you don't agree, you lose.
Yeah.
You're like, that's cheating according to the rule book.
Yeah. But that's the way it is, right? That's what but how often do we find ourselves doing that? How often do we find ourselves saying to this other person, I don't understand why you think that way, because the way you're thinking is obviously wrong. Because according to me, the way I think, this is right.
That's where people were correct in the first part. I don't understand why you're thinking that way.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yep. Period. Right?
Correct.
There's the period. Exactly.
You don't understand.
Exactly.
Correct. Leave it there. You should be seeking to understand versus judging to change.
Yeah. But we can't leave it there because because the second part is we want to know, but we want to know according to the way we want to know it. We want to be proven right. That's the thing.
But what is truth then except for a subjective agreement? We can
100%.
never be right except for do you agree, which means if you're seeking balance, you will always be wrong.
Yep.
Because there's information that you don't know. And so if you just stop it with what you know for your experiences, it's the same thing as Socrates would say. Well, I know nothing. In comparison to what there is to know, I know less than 1% of what there is. And a majority of what I don't know, I don't even know that I don't know.
Yeah.
So how can I be the one who's always right?
Yeah. And the thing is you're not. Again, we're all making it up as we go along. Nobody has the answer. And if someone tells you they have the answer, be careful. Because my thing is, I'm not telling people I have the answer. Whenever anyone sits in front of me for life coaching or for therapy, I don't say, this is the answer. I say, tell me your story. Where are you coming from? Let me understand so that I can give you some guidance from what I have observed in my life. But beyond that, I can't do anything else than that. Because if I start telling you, this is the way you need to do stuff, then guess who I am? I am just like everybody else, and you are not going to get better, and you're not going to get what you need from me, and you're never going to come back and see me.
Well,
so my job is to say,
it's wrong.
Take a breath, figure it out. Let's look through this. Let's see where we have errors in thinking. And the errors in thinking are not my errors in thinking. It's me leading you to go, oh, I see how me thinking that way is leading me down this path. And that's why it takes sometimes months to get people to have that epiphany. But it's also why it doesn't have to take months. Because if you give them time and you give them a good structure to follow to begin the process of change their perception, then they are now able to go, aha, so much faster and make the changes that they want. That's why it's slow and steady wins the race. It's not 3 days and I'm healed. It's 3 months of 15 minutes a day gets you to this moment where you're like, I see the world totally differently now because I've been doing it a little tiny bit at a time. And now I understand me in relationship to all of this. So I can control me, which is the only thing any of us can control, is how you react. And even that, woo, preach, are you telling me to preach? Is that what you're saying?
Well said. Well said. I agree. Well said. This is a good breakdown of what it is, and I'm agreeing with you. Let's go into get a little more controversial because I think we're on the same page here.
Sure.
Let's go into the people that you said were judging off of credentials versus competency. Let's get into the reality of this thing right now. People will look at, like, I've got my storage bin somewhere is a whole bin full of plaques and certifications that nobody gives a shit about. Can you really do it or can you really not do it? And how do we challenge people with competency? Because what you just said technically goes against conventional teaching right now. So how do we challenge people for like what works versus a credential that is going to have people doing therapy for 15 years with no progress? How do you tell the difference, or what do you do? And then I do want to get into the part where we get back into how do we figure out what we want. I just want to put a pin in that one.
So the hard thing is that, so when it comes to therapy, my belief in doing therapy for 23 years is my belief has always been, if you don't make progress, if you don't even get that first little flicker of a light bulb within the first 3 to 6 months of therapy, that's not the right therapist for you. And really, you'll know that within about the first 2 weeks. Because you will know whether or not, because I always ask my clients, I'm like, when you're out there and you're about to do this thing, do you hear my voice in your head? And most of them are like, yeah, you're like Jiminy Cricket. And I'm like, good. That means I know that we're a good fit. Because if I'm not that voice in your head, knowing that, oh crap, if I do this thing, I'm going to have to come in next week and explain myself to my therapist. And I really don't want to do that because I know they're not going to judge me, but I'm going to judge me. It's that piece. It's recognizing that if you're not having that, then that's not the therapist for you, because you need somebody that is going to be the Jiminy Cricket on your shoulder when you're about to make this choice and take that step back and say, wait a minute. No, I am not going to do this thing because I know that the choice I'm making is wrong, because my little warning system of what my therapist would tell me, what my life coach would tell me, is flagging me saying, whoa, take a step back, take a breath, hold on, don't do that. Because if you don't get that from your life coach or from your therapist, then that's not a good fit, because that's what you need. Because you need that guidance, that person on that Jiminy Cricket on your shoulder, whispering in your ear going, let's think about this twice. Because if you don't think about this twice, then you're going to probably make the feeling response instead of the logical choice response. And let's face it, the feeling response is usually the wrong one.
So you're talking about feelings versus logic. We dropped the internet, so we're back in. You said, well, people we're operating under their feelings versus the logic, and you were talking about the Jiminy Cricket, which I call like you created a conscience for the people to be able to know you have the right person.
Yes.
So hopefully that gives you your kickoff point.
Thanks. Okay, so when you're stuck in your feelings versus logic and you need the Jiminy Cricket piece, the reason why that's so important is because you need to take that step. It gives you that second, and it gives you that external person to say, hey, it's okay to stop. It's okay to take that step back. It's okay to take that breath, because most people are externally motivated. They're not internally motivated. There's people that are internally motivated, but those are the ones that rarely seek therapy, because they need the external motivation and the external person to say, it's okay to slow down. It's okay to take that breath. It's okay to not just say, I'm going to go with whatever I'm feeling right now. It's okay to say, okay, I don't need to act right now. I can take that 30-second break to analyze and see and let the logic kick in so I can get the real result that I want instead of the feeling result, which has often led me astray.
I actually really enjoy what you're saying right now, because it goes into the idea like the creating a conscience for somebody by being considered a credible source and being credible based on competency, not just credentials. And this is where I'm actually doing a lot more push in this direction, because I've talked to some people who are coming out with modern day teaching for psychology, and it does work against what's credible and what works. It goes into almost indoctrinating instead of trying to actually heal. And that's a big push I've been doing, to say, I challenge, are you good at it or do you just have a plaque on the wall? Have you been to hell, or are you just reading a brochure about it? And this is where it's a very different level of conversation. But if you're connecting with somebody and you may like them as a person, but you don't see any progress because they're not creating a conscience inside of you, it's ironic that you are really truly assessing a recalibration of authority, because the people who have been an authority in your life have led you down a path of their own selfish, destructive personality traits. And this creates generational curses. And you are now trying to reallocate authority to somebody who gives you permission to be yourself.
Well, and the thing you also have to remember is I'm just a human being. I'm as fallible as everybody else. There's going to be times when something you say may trigger me. But if I'm not aware as a therapist of what is triggering me, then I'm not a good therapist. Because my job is to know me enough so I can say, hold on, stop. I need to take a step back. I need to take a break. Because right now, the path I'm trying to lead you down is my path, not your path. And actually, it's interesting you say that, because I actually experienced this with my oldest son last year, because he went through bullying very similar to what I went through with a group of his friends last year. And it took everything inside of me to step back and to just be there for him, and to not want to jump in and say, this is the solution. This is what you do. This is how you have to fix this, because that wouldn't have been my fix. That would have been his fix. It would have been my fix. And that wouldn't have been fair to him. He was able to navigate it in a way I never thought about navigating it. And he navigated it successfully with me being there as a support, instead of as, I am the rule, I know the way, follow me. No, this is what I've been through. This is my understanding of what you're saying. Have you thought about it like this? Have you thought about it like that? Giving different options just to begin to change the way you think, so that you can then maybe have 3 or 4 choices instead of, this is the only road I have. Because forks in the road happen all the time if you recognize them. Life is nothing but massive amounts of forks in the road. Do I go left? Do I go right? Do I go straight? Do I make a U-turn? What am I supposed to do? But having the ability to stop and go, what are my options right now? Because the fear in me, the feelings in me are saying, go straight, go left, because that's what we've always done. But the other part of me is going, well, but right looks a little more sunny and a little more fertile. I'm like, it could be someplace better, but I don't know where that goes. So I don't know. So it's those pieces where, as you continually move through this, having the ability to stop and slow down and take that breath gives you the ability to make better choices. And that's all life is. It's choice. I am 100% in agreement. One of my favorite class in when I was getting my master's degree was choice theory, that everything is a choice. You're choosing to depress. You're choosing to do this. You're choosing to do that. You're making choices. You may not be aware that you're making choices. It might be a subconscious thing, but even subconscious thoughts bubble up and become conscious if you do them enough, because that's how it works.
It's hard for the guy who wrote a book called Everything is a Choice to disagree with your causality theory.
Well, you know.
If I was like, I got pushback, even though I wrote a book exactly on that topic.
Yeah, come on, come on. I want to take the other side. Come on, let's go.
I'm like, man, I'm already in your choir on this one. So, no, I've come to the same conclusion, and this is where I do believe that the best leaders are the ones who can show the way. And a lot of times I'm seeing very ego-driven people who have credentials, but they aren't actually competent at it. And they're going to say, here's the answer. I call it the Rubik's Cube. I'm like, this is your answer. That's what your life is supposed to be. It's
Rick, my cube doesn't look like that. All my sides don't match up. What am I supposed to do?
Here we go. You go like this. You go, I have the answer for you. We'll solve your cube for only $6,000. And you can have my videos to solve the greens. You'll have money will be solved and your life will be better. And you're like, okay, I bought it. I got the greens. And then you're like, but the rest of this isn't the rest is a mess. What am I supposed to do?
The rest of it's not quite the same.
Well, I got to do the other parts, but the guy who I'm with only knows the greens. And so I noticed that if I talk to somebody who's gotten past the greens, they're like, yeah, what you have to do is you got to turn the green so you can get it. And they're like, wait. I worked really hard to get the greens. Are you telling me to get the reds? I got to mess up the greens? I'm like, well, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, no.
I can't do that because the greens are finally working for me.
And you're looking at the dude's cube who's trying to help you, and you're like, did you try to peel the sticker off of this one? What were you trying to, what were you doing? You don't know how to solve this thing.
Yes,
and so,
I did.
People are trying to take shortcuts and they're not trying to do it. The answers are not the solution, but if you can recognize the causality of every choice leads to another choice, and are you cognitive or trained or aware enough that each choice leads you down to another set of decisions? I completely concur. I agree. It's just raising our awareness and training.
It comes back to recognizing the math of things, right? Because feelings are an equation. If I'm, happy plus this equals this feeling here. Sad plus this equals this thing here. It's, your thoughts plus your feelings equals action or reaction. But you have to remember the other side of the equation is who's getting the action or the reaction. Because then that person's going to have thoughts and feelings, and they're going to trigger and put in an action or reaction, which then triggers you to do an action or reaction. And now you're creating this dysfunctional cycle. It's one of the things that I tell my clients that are coming in and they're talking about their husbands or their wives or their spouse in some way. And I'm like, I'm sorry, yes, we can talk about that, but this is not individual couples therapy, because individual couples therapy will not fix anything. If anything, it's going to break it. It's going to make it worse because you're going to see all the ways that you've changed and all the ways they haven't. So yeah, we can talk about it, but I want you to know where this is going to lead, because I've led people here many, many times. I'm more than happy to go with you, but I want you to understand this is the end result, is you will start to see the gaping holes and the flaws in the pattern that you're stuck in with this person, and you will begin to hate it, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that is 100%. What the Jiminy Cricket piece is for. It's to get people to see so that I am not going to go back there. I know that exit. I hate that exit. I hate where it takes me. I am never doing that again. And the problem is, if your passenger wants to go there, they will do everything they can to get you to go there, because that's what's comfortable and familiar to them.
Correct. I'm with you. You're getting into the love category, which we do not have time for. No, I definitely I like it. Let's do some more. I have like 20 more questions we didn't get to. So, Clint, what is your goal here right now? Is there a way that people, if like I want to be able to help people, you can reach me here? Or do you want people to come and work with you in person, or are you looking to set people up towards information that you have? Like, how can we serve?
Yeah. So I have a coaching program. So it is not the solution, but it will give you tools. So basically, if you're feeling like you're stuck or you're failing in different areas of your life, I know that you can make a change because I've helped people do it. So the key is really to focus on renovating these 4 different main areas of your life: how you use your time, the way you connect with people, how you handle your emotions, and what your purpose is. And that's why I created the Small Changes, Big Impact 1% per day transformational system, because I want to teach you how to take accountability. I want to teach you how to learn and have these 30 different psychological tools, and to use these tools to make these small changes every day in those areas of your life in just 15 minutes a day, so that you can have a better life in 3 to 6 months. If you want to make a change and you're tired of feeling stuck, you can reach out to me at smallchangesbigimpact.net, and it's /info. And on that website, you can get more information. You can link to a 20-minute training that I have on burnout. Or if you want, you can just set up a 30-minute call, and I'm happy to talk to you about whatever you're trying to work through. You can also reach out, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram at smallchangesbigimpact.4 and then the letter U. But yeah, I just want to help people figure out how to move on, how to get through, how to be better, because being stuck sucks. I've been there. I've done that. I never want to do it again. And I just want people to be their best version of themselves, whatever that is. But Rick, it's been absolutely fantastic talking with you. I have had such a good time.
No, it's an honor.
I want to have 100 more conversations. Let's just book a 24-hour period. Let's go for it.
Listen, it's going to have to be on the weekend. All right. So sounds cool. Also, I think we just found this shirt that we need to make for you. Your shirt needs to say "Being stuck sucks." That's your shirt.
100%.
Clint, it's an honor, man. Thank you so much. I do want to do another session with you. So if we can, let's schedule another time, whether it be a couple weeks, next month, whatever. Yeah. I think that we can just keep going. And these conversations
I think we have a lot more territory to cover. You've got another 75 questions to ask me. I'm good to go.
I do. So we got more. Let's book another one. Let's have another session. Let's go to round 2. And this would be wonderful, man. It's been such an honor. Thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to the next time we get to have some quality time kicking some ass together. Send me a link.
Send me your calendar. Let's get this set up. Let's get it on the books.
You got it.
Have a great rest of your day.
Brother. You too.
Bye.
Later.
Click on the button and you can become the hero in your own story. It's time to start making the choices to change. And the evolution that you're going to do begins with choosing the next step. This is the way. And together, we're always stronger.